I feel like I've seen enlightenment, and I thought it was going to be about levitating and telekinesis, and it's actually just about an increased awareness of how annoying I am. All right, hello, we're back. Today is December 11th, I think. We did record one on December 2nd, but we didn't like it when we were editing it. So
it was shit.
We threw it in the trash. Still getting our lives back after the wedding to funeral portal. Still starting to feel normal. I literally just cleaned out the pile of bills and stuff from pre-wedding. Stuff that I was like, I'll deal with this.
Yeah, I saw that pile over there on the floor. Is that just going to sit there until I clean
That's
it up?
how I make sure that I don't throw away anything important. If I try to put all the piles on the desk, I did once throw away the deed to my house. With that, if I put all the piles on the desk, I will forget which pile is which and halfway through start sorting them. So sorry, it has to stay on the floor because I'm not done yet because we were recording a podcast.
Oh, okay.
But I did have a tiny bill go to collections in the last few months, which did activate my sacral to go through the pile.
Did you get all those over there?
Yep.
Yeah, you must have.
But and I'm missing like the hospital bill from Sunny, so I don't know. Anyway,
this podcast is going to suck too. Let's talk about bills.
I do edit that stuff out. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to edit that out because it was funny. But
you edit this out.
Mark
too.
is a little spicy, which is not.
It's making her edit process a little more challenging.
Yeah, you do. Mark has the cutest tick of there's a connection between your nose and your throat chakra. So when you're thinking about communicating, you do little sniffs.
Yeah, and I twitch my nose.
Yeah, and I can actually tell when have I said this on the podcast before? I can tell when we're sitting in a silent room if you're getting ready to express something to me, because you will do a double sniff when you are thinking about what you're about to say.
Yeah, that's weird. I think that, I don't know where it came from. I do feel like there was a point in my life when I had allergies, like in quotations, I'm saying, because when I was young, I was sniffing a lot, and like my dad hated it. And so he was always like, get a Kleenex, Mark, stop sniffing. And I was like, I can't help it.
Ironic, Dad. And
then I think my mom was like, we should go see if you're allergic to something. And so I was allergic to dogs and cats, they said. And then I got put on like Claritin. And then I went back not long after that, and that allergy was never there. It was like I went into some weird alternate thing. Like they said I was allergic to it, so then I had to have Claritin, and I was sniffing a lot still, and that like kind of went away. And then I don't remember there. I don't know how many years later, but I was at the doctor again for blood work, and I think they said, do you have any allergies? I'm like, oh yeah, dogs and cats. And then it came up and they're like, no, you don't. You don't have that. You're not, like, it doesn't show on here. You're not allergic to that at all. And so then they were like, well, it can come and go, because I was young. So from that point on, though, is when I had a nose issue. Like I became very self-aware of
self-conscious, my
sniffing. And
was there anything in your nose?
Yeah, it was either like stuffed up or runny. And so I was either like always sniffing or having to blow it, or like just, so there was always an issue, and it made me like just aware of it. But then when I don't need to sniff, I'm like sniffing constantly. And so it became a tic. It's like from that point on, I just remember it being a tic that I noticed when I saw myself in videos or heard myself being recorded. I'm like, the motherfucker's sniffing every 2 seconds. And I don't need to. Like, I know I don't need to. It's just like this weird habit. Yeah.
I'm sure we have to have discussed that on the
I think we maybe have.
In the early days.
At certain points, because it became obvious when you're editing.
Yeah. Because I pretty consistently take them out because they look all exactly the same in the sound waves. So I've gotten pretty efficient at cutting most of them out. But
I think we should keep them in.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we're talking about it. I think we've talked about it before, but I'm glad we're talking about it because sometimes I do go, I don't feel like doing the sniffs.
Yeah.
I want to leave in the ums and the sniffs. I can get on a real roll though. Anyway. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I am on a new rabbit hole. We talked about this on the last podcast that we didn't release, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if I talked about it beforehand.
No, I think we might have.
So.
No.
Yeah, there, and I think I wasn't really looking for this. I think over the last couple of months, like we've maybe talked about, I just haven't really been inspired to be reading and just be like in the learning mode, which I usually am, which is nice to go through phases of just not needing to seek. I don't feel like drawn to it. I just kind of want to be and live.
Yeah.
But then it naturally came up the other day through just a video. I was out watering the bamboo and listened to a YouTube video that was this guy, Jordan Crowder, who I've listened to on TikTok before. Is kind of where he started, where he would just walk in the woods and talk about a current conscious thing that was going on, whether it's like aliens, Three Eye Atlas, or consciousness stuff. He's from Florida, so I was kind of like drawn to it for that, I guess, because he's like walking in a Florida woods that feels very nostalgic to me. Anyways, he's like started a podcast, and so it just popped up, and it was about OBEs, out of body experiences, and Robert Monroe, his book series. The 3 books that are the main ones that he wrote. Journeys Out of the Body was the most famous, which is like in the 70s, and then The later two were written later in life. I don't remember when, but I'm through the second one now. And he was just doing a synopsis on a couple of videos, like a chapter here and there, and would read it and then talk about it. And it opened up something, and maybe also because we've been, dealing with grief and losing loved ones that are, on the other side, as you would say, or in a different form. And so this out of body experience and just him talking about it was like really activating and interesting.
Yeah, because you already had the book. And obviously you know who Robert Monroe is.
I know who Robert Monroe is, and I've like known enough about out of body experiences. I've like heard a lot, read other books. I had that book because somebody told me about it. And it's one of those books where I've just heard of it,
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I should just get this. I should add it to the collection that I'll read someday. And right when it got here, I started to read it, but it just wasn't activating. And so usually when that happens, I'm like, I'm just not supposed to read it right now. So of course, when I saw this video, I was like, I need to go read that book now. I think it's time. And immediately picked it up, and it was just like so easy to read that I flew through it in a couple of days. And one of the most interesting things, which actually was in the second book that Jordan Crowder was talking about, this chapter, was him essentially meeting these other intelligences in his out-of-body experience. And they went to like the year 3000 on Earth to, I think Robert was just curious. And these beings, which turn out to be like his higher self, and later in the book, spoiler alert. And that was just really interesting because they were talking about what the Earth is like and how life is. And one of the most interesting thing is, they were saying, Robert, you're always trying to tell people on Earth where you are now that you're more than the body. There is something else. You have a second body, and there's more to this thing you call life or a soul than just your body. And in the year 3000, they're kind of saying the opposite. They're trying to remind people you are more than just your energy. Like, you can also go have these experiences in a physical body. And they essentially have these like bodies parked on Earth, like under, in their case, it was like under these oak trees. And they're just like, they're almost like little motorcycles or jet skis that they can like put themselves into whenever they want to go down and have an experience on Earth. And Earth is like a garden now. It's not overrun by people and us disseminating nature and all of its resources. It has like stabilized. But it's literally like the bodies just like are parked down there, and they have this whole thing where, they call it a reball. I think that's what they call it, reball, which is like a energy protective thing that they put around the body so it stays the same temperature and like bugs and things can't get it. Because he's obviously asking all these like, logical
materialist questions. Yeah.
But it's interesting, and it just made you start to think. I was like, oh, there's so many other parts. Like, he asked questions about how the world got that way, where did everything go, and why is it that way? And the answers are really interesting. And just in that video, there's a lot of information because it's just one chapter he reads. But then I finally got to the book, that part of the book, and it's near the end, and there's like 2 more chapters after that is like so fascinating. That book is called Far Journeys, I think. It's the second book, whatever. So anyways, I think it just started getting me thinking more about like the nature of reality and what this transition, like what we're in, obviously in some kind of pinnacle peak moment where something is going to, so much change is occurring that there's, the decisions being made now are like kind of very influential, and there's something about like kind of getting lost in the drama of it and trying to also just, you know, heal and do your thing. But I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like there's something that series started to open up a, like, I guess it's kind of like a grounding in the weirder part of reality and putting emphasis on like physical form that is not so much, I think, in a lot of the times of this understanding of the reality being so controlled and hyper, like we're in a jail and like we got to stop the day and you want to escape and get the hell out and like we got to get to utopia kind of thing. And even in the year 3000, you could say that's like kind of a utopia.
Yeah, that's what stands out to me is we never reach a point where we go, this is it.
Yeah, and I don't think we like want that. I think I want it. I think we all want it to be like easier or more balanced. But there's some place where you get to and you just realize like how special it all is once you get through the resistance or, you know, the hurt or the pain like that. I just don't know. Like, I know there are places, there's like utopias that exist that you would say are just more balanced and easy, but there's something that gets very boring about it or something that doesn't activate enough change and expansion that like things get stagnant and eventually.
Right. I feel like utopia, first of all, very subjective. Balance, I don't think can be ever a permanent state. I think that balance is a transient state when the pendulum hits its center. And I also feel like you don't even know you're experiencing balance until you're in a far pendulum swing. And then you go, shit, it was kind of balanced back there for a second. But nothing ever stays the same. And so it's like right now, I think what brings us the most joy, and I say we is kind of like the big we, the big collective awakening we, is projecting onto the future what we think ascension is going to be. But then it sounds like we ascend too hard. And then it's like, okay, but the whole point of the earth thing is to be in the body. And we're like, no, I'm chilling.
Yeah. And there's like, I've gone back and forth with this. I saw a TikTok the other day. It was a dude just like talking about like, what if this is what reality is? And I've thought about it before. Well, and I would say that there's certain books, like the Cassiopeians talk about it, certain ancient books that emphasize being in a body, like being a human. So there's consciousness in the world, and that consciousness can express itself in so many different ways. And if we were familiar with the human experience, we would say non-human intelligence is consciousness just expressing itself somewhere else. We're calling it non-human, but from that being's perspective, we're non-human intelligence, right? So it's always like this perspective thing, but that there's something genuinely like in the cosmos, there's something very special about being in a human body. And I like people say that, but when you're dealing with like the bullshit of life or you're like sick, it's like, this isn't special. Why I would rather not be in a body and be lighter, you know, and being able to like move through time and float and fly, you know. So why is this so special? It's like, it's very hard to understand. But there's, you know, like I think one of Robert Monroe's like ultimate, he was doing out of body experience. Like he was doing that for 30, 40 years. For a long time, it was, you know, it eventually became the Monroe Institute, and now there's like classes and there's like a whole protocol he has of how to do it. And then we can get into like the CIA was interested for a little bit. he created the hemisync tapes, which is binaural beats that help you, they facilitate the out-of-body experience. Did the CIA use that? Did they mess with the hemisync tapes now that he's not here? Are you now doing the hemisyncs and going into like a weird reality? I don't know. There's like a lot of people think. I have my own like hesitations with it. Reading the books, though, is like, it is very interesting. And he studied it for so long that like he did seem to get, in his own view, a really great idea of like what is going on Earth, and a little bit more what is going on in our galaxy or just outside of it, you know, in space and time and dimensions and stuff. And again, this could just be like his own interpretation of it. So like how I'm always just like hesitant when somebody has like, it's a really convincing idea, just like the Cassiopeans, it's really convincing, but like, is it only yours? And am I supposed to find my own path? Because I'm just aware of like, you're building your own world when you start to understand these things.
Right.
Anyways, that aside, he does, one of his like theories in the end is like being in a human body, going through human experience in the greater cosmos is looked at as like a very special thing. It's very respected. So anybody that has done that, when you come in contact with other forms of intelligences, they automatically see that in your field and are like, whoa. And it essentially is like, you've gone through lessons and gone through certain experiences in life that are only available in the human experience on Earth, that I think expands you to like a really wide degree in other places of consciousness and experience. And so like, why is that? What is that all about? And I think it is because there's some unpredictability of being in a human body. You can't remember a lot of the things that you've had, experiences you've had before, what it all is. So the forgetfulness puts you into this soup kind of that is intense. Like you can get lost in it, and you can, you know, the idea that you believe that you can actually die, it like creates so many opportunities for different kinds of experiences. And so I think there's something that's like endlessly fascinating about that to me, because I've experienced it in altering my consciousness with psychedelics or getting into certain states, meditating and stuff that makes you like get a sense of that. But there's a part of me that's always wanting to escape the body. And then when I escape too far, I'm like, I want back in the body. I want back in the unpredictability, the unpredictableness of reality that is so like precious.
Yeah.
But it means like not being able to know everything and not being able to control everything. Which is like, I think sometimes what we're trying to get to as a culture when we want utopia is like we want to control everything.
Right.
And we want to be able to predict and prevent pain and struggle.
And when we think we only want to have good experiences and no bad experiences, which is a misunderstanding of, like, I think what we love about Earth is the slowed down separateness, where I feel like when we're on the other side, it has a similarity to like when you're dreaming. And so everywhere your consciousness can flit in a moment, you are there instantly. And so, you know, that's fun and it's very free, and it's instant manifestation if you think about it. But if in my dream, like nothing ever finishes, nothing ever completes, because maybe my dreams are a manifestation of my ADHD, but it's like as soon as my mind goes, well, what about this? Then boom, I'm over there, right? And so the density and the physicality slows everything down. It also separates everything. So I get to experience you as something separate than me, which I'm sure exists in other versions, like higher density versions, but Not really, because I think if you take the amnesia away, there is an understanding that you are me. And so, the fear of death is gone. The fear of loss is gone. The separateness is gone because we understand resonance. And so even just that, like, being in love with someone and afraid that, and being able to experience a breakup with them, I don't think happens in these higher density things, because there's such an understanding of resonance that if you and I started to fall out of resonance, that awareness would take the sting of the breakup. You can only feel the sting of a breakup because your awareness of the falling out of resonance is blocked by your attachment, and attachment you can only experience in the amnesia. Yeah, and so it's like, I think we're here for the pain. In a lot of ways, we're here for the pain. We're here for the fantasy. We're here for the delusion. We're here for the death, in some ways. I'm not ordering more death, but it's like, I do get it in the grief. I get it. I get that my, part of grief is like, for me, is like, I still feel him and he's right here, and I get all that. And I get even that, like, a lot of the things I loved about my dad, I can still experience. I can still hear him joking. I can still, like, and I'm not even trying yet, I can still use him as a resource in areas of my life and stuff. Like, I can still do all that because I have a connection to that, but I can't physically hug it. I can't, the reason I can do that is because I understand the connection, that we are one, kind of, it's like, I can't experience the separation with him anymore. Right. And I also understand that I believe we basically roll with the same group of people. And so we all gathered as him as my dad this time, and you as my husband this time, and them as my kids. But we all just kind of reconfigure and go into different games together, is my belief system, that you roll with a relatively, the same pack of people. And, but there's also a grief in, like, I know, but that's the last time you'll be my dad in this era, And so it's a slowed down, is the only way I know how to describe it, linearity. And we're going into a much less linear reality, but a linearity full of moments that I feel like you don't quite, with like big feelings that you don't quite get to have in like less dense versions of reality. And then the potential to get lost is crazy. I mean, I think everyone eventually finds their way out, but
that's what's so fascinating about when Robert Monroe's talking about, like, as he's exploring the out of body experience, he goes further and further and starts to get comfortable. And a lot of these books is like his notes, kind of like diary of the process. And it's fascinating. Like, there's a part where there's the first aspect is like, he basically starts to go through different rings, he calls them, that are like on the outskirts of the earth. And the first one's called like an M band. It's essentially like everybody's subconscious thoughts goes into like a certain place, and it's just noise. And so you have to like go through that, but they're actual like representations. Like they're like almost like, I would say, it feels like egregores or something. They are like beings, but they're just thoughts of people. And so like he learns how to start to go through them really quickly, because it is so overwhelming and it kind of disorients you and you can get pulled into it. But he talks about them almost like sucker fish. Like when you're going through, they kind of like attach to you. It's almost like little demons. And you have to kind of like, he said he had to learn how to be still and move slowly through it at first, and then they wouldn't bother him. But in time, he learns how to just like blast through the radiant band. But then he's got all these other bands that he starts to like explore that are essentially like beings, second bodies, like hanging out in different areas. And so sometimes there's also one where people die and they don't know that they're dead, and so they're like in this one ring. But anyways, he there's so many different ideas that I want to talk about, but because there's also this like unconscious sex area that is like so fascinating because our culture is like so dominated by like this animalistic drive that catches you after the physical. If you have not like figured out how to balance that, you're just like stuck in this weird world trying
this like
to
writhing, humping orgy world.
Yeah, but you're not physical, so you can't ever get there. But you're like your desire and motivation has got you so wrapped in that you don't even realize you're not dead, and you're just like,
God, this
stuck.
resonates so hard because when people are like, "What happens when you die?" I want to be like, it's different for everyone.
Yeah, and that's like the most alarming thing to me. I mean, it's like so interesting because that idea is there's a lot behind that I think is I would want it to be that way, but it does emphasize like what we're doing here and like not getting a hold of some of those deeper desires and not being honest can really like mess you up on the exchange afterwards, whether you're going to come back or not. And I think so this leads me to this thing where it's like you can get lost in these games. And that is so cool and interesting and so scary. But I'm trying to get to this point where essentially he's now like traveling into other worlds and out of bodies. He learns how to go. He's got a second body. He basically astral travels with that, but you're still like in the earthly physical realms. And then he realizes, oh, I can get out of the second body. And now I'm more what you'd say is like, in the world of like non-human intelligence. So it's like where you're just an orb, or you have no body. You have no physical form. And that's where he's like, you can start to run into all kinds of different intelligences. And so he calls them inspecs, which is, what is that short for? Interstellar, I don't remember, but it's essentially just non-human intelligence, non-physical intelligence. And again, in the long term, these couple that he runs into, that he gives them names, is like AA and BB.
Not Netanyahu.
And not the Alcohol Anonymous.
What if those are just like, that's it, and the afterworld is fucking Netanyahu or AA meetings?
God, that's hell. And so this turns out to be like aspects of himself. Again, spoiler alert. It's not really a spoiler alert because like if you know that up front, like this is all so much more interesting. It is like by the time you get to the end and you find out, it's like, oh my God. But then you have to go back and read it because you're like, this changes everything.
Right.
Know? So I think it's actually helpful. But at one point, he's like, BB is one that is, he's able to interact with more and like almost see, but it's not so much seeing with the physical eyes. But then AA is this one, like when you're dreaming, you have that thing that there's always like something behind you kind of, but you never really see it. But it's like so, it always feels like it's a loved one or it's you in some other form. But it's always this like thing that's like you can't, it's like trying to see the back of your head. You can't ever really see it, but you know it's there. And so there's this other aspect of him that's AA that is like he can never get to be in closeness with because there's some repelling thing that happens, which is really interesting because I think it is like it's his self in the future. And if you aren't ready for it and you come in contact with that, I think you would like blow you out. Like you wouldn't, it's like a magnets trying to polar opposites coming together. They repel each other. It's a natural thing that happens. I think at some point you reunite, but it's like, it's some weird paradox black hole that you would fall into. So BB is aware of this AA and so is Robert Monroe, but it's always like Robert can't see him or get in direct contact. So he's always speaking through BB, and BB is like really tight with AA. So that's all the backstory where essentially there's this point where they're going on what you would say is like a tour of the earthly realms. And it's like it's for non-human intelligences that have never been in a human body or are looking to maybe try it out. they get like a basic tour of like, this is what it's all about. And AA at some point is like, I really want to try this. Like, I'm really interested. I hear all about human, like being on Earth and being a human is like the most far out thing to do. And so during the like little tour, like they're so close to this thing, which as he describes it, it's almost like a fractal thing. The consciousness is, so the M-band radiation, there's all these subconscious thoughts, and there's this other realm where it's the dead, they don't know they're dead. And then there's another realm where it's like guides and beings that know what's going on, and they're trying to just help balance the earth. And so when you're seeing all of that from afar, it's like a fuzzy, like fractal thing, and it kind of entrances you and hypnotizes you. And the closer he gets, he's like, I want to go in. There's this whole thing where like they go in this process of getting into a body. And essentially they're in like a lobby, and like AA goes in to do his first run. And not much longer later, he comes out, and like from where Robert and BB are, like in the lobby, it's not much time, but he's had a whole life experience, and he died early at 46, and he was a woman, and he was like, this shit was awful. All I was doing was like working and like making babies and feeding this man, who he just like sat around and, abused me and raped me and did all this stuff. And so he's comes back out and is almost in a delusion where they're like, where were you the whole time? He's like, oh, what do you mean? I didn't know I was supposed to come back here. He was so focused on what had happened to him as a female. He was like, I want to go back and be a man, because I want to experience what that was like, and I'm almost mad, and I want to come in and like kill other men. He had this like rage. So they were like, well, don't go do it again. Like, why don't we just go back, let's go back to being what we were doing before, like playing in the cosmos. And he's like, no. This, you don't understand. Like, I need to go finish what I started.
And welcome to karma.
Yeah, and so then they go back, and then there's this whole adventure where they try to find him in that male body, and they come across him, because you're popping in on any kind of time scale. So he pops in somewhere where basically he's with an army of men. They have shields and spears, and they're all like marching somewhere to attack another tribe of some sort. And they get caught in a ravine, and this other tribe comes from the top and attacks them. And so AA is this like beastly man. He gets stabbed by a spear, and Robert and BB go down. Again, Robert can't do anything. Like, BB has to do it because they're like one and the same. And BB tries to guide him back up to get him out of the reincarnation cycle and out of those low realms, and try to get him back into the lobby of like, let's take the choice now to go somewhere else. But doesn't realize he's been stabbed. He's just trying to kill the other guys, but he's like not physical anymore. So BB grabs him and is trying to be like, hey, like, no, come this way. And he's like, not even paying attention that his astral like brother is trying to get him out. And he's like, I have to kill those beings. So Robert's like, you can't do anything now, because he's learned enough that he's like, his consciousness is so focused there that there's no way you can pull him out. You have to let him go. So they do that, and he just ends up getting lost in that little astral space trying to kill beings that he's not even physical. So he's like trying to stab them. He's going right through them, And so the way they really emphasize that this thing, once you go, have these people, these beings that are first timers or one timers. So they just come in to do one incarnation and then go out. And there's like a certain ring that you'd say their higher selves stay in, so that they don't get caught. And there's like an agreement that they just come in once and they're out, and you can't get really addicted. You can get, spun out, but other beings that go in, you can just get caught for lifetimes and lifetimes. And there's these lower rings where eventually you start high on these rings where every time you die, you come back out and you kind of remember and know. But the more you get into the game and the more karma you pick up, the lower and denser in these rings that you go, to a point where you die and you don't realize it because you're just so attached to the physical. You don't accept that there's anything else more to life but physical reality.
And so when a lot of souls are doing that, we collectively drive down into the density.
We all go down, and it's
wow.
And in some sense, though, it's like on a macro scale, you see the whole thing is expanding. The further down it goes, the further high it goes, right? Because it just becomes really difficult for the beings that are super low to get up out through those rings and come back up to doing their final cycle as a human, where you've done all the experiences that you came to do. So essentially you've gotten rid of all the karma, which isn't punishment. It's just like, it's this experiential thing where, you know, when someone does you wrong in high school, like you want to get them back, right? So like whenever there's something in life that on a big scale, you do something wrong, you want to like make up for it later. When you die, you have all that realization, so you just want to go back. So eventually, the lower it goes, I think collectively, like the more momentum that goes the opposite way as far as experience and life lessons that expand. You know, it goes both ways. So I don't see it as necessarily bad, but it is dense and heavy to get out of when the collective is doing that. The M-band radiation and all of that stuff is like making the earth like this foggy, noisy place. And so there are these beings that on the outer ring, it's just like enlightened souls that like hang out, not completely physical and not completely, you know, ethereal, that they're just trying to assist those ones that are really low that are actually trying to get up, but they can't because like all of these other beings that are so lost keep messing them up or weighing them down. And so they hang out and just like do whatever they can to assist.
Dude, hold on. This is opening up so much shit for me right now. 'Cause I hate the like starseed shit and, you know, whatever that has its own like complicated origins, or I don't think it's complicated origins, but its own complicated hijacked thing by the Nazis or whatever. But it distinctly has always felt to me, especially through the awakening process, through the near-death experience, that my soul came here for the intention of getting planted as far down as possible, and that making my way back up in the game and then, I don't know, like telling people how I did it was like the purpose of my life. I don't feel deeply connected to a lot of lifetimes here. I don't feel deeply connected to, and then in times where I've done like mushroom trips and stuff, like that has gotten confirmed. Not that I've never been here before, but that like the primary game I play in the Roblox of Earth is when it's time to ascend or descend. Like I like those games, right? And so, not like I'm a savior or anything, but just like in the video game, the game I like to play is to show up and like I know how to play through this part. Like I know how to transform very fast, and so I can get up the levels, and then I know how to explain it to people. And I have those very clear now memories of the opposite happening in Atlantis. Of like, okay, now we're going through the transition down, you know? I don't feel a strong connection to much else. And just as you're talking about this, and I do think there are a lot of people, souls, currently on the planet who are not necessarily souls that have been sitting here reincarnating, trapped in that like tumbler, right? Who are like, okay, we're all going to go in at the same time. We're going to get dropped down to the density and then fucking pull out as hard as we can. We all have like traps we're going to pick. So it's like for you pick fame, right? For me, it was like deep, deep trauma as a child. And also being like, 25 flavors of toxic and unhealthy and mentally ill and sick and all these other things. And then like so many things in my life, part of the reason I walk around with the sensation that the other shoe is going to drop all the time is because I do have this kind of, and maybe this is like a paranoia of mine, but the way it has always felt is that I have to experience all these different things for the purpose of hacking that part of the matrix. And even though the group of people I pass it on to is relatively small, it doesn't take much for like right now I'm hacking all this health stuff, right? And I just had this realization where I feel like I've been swimming upstream of like this health stuff for 6 straight years almost. And then there's a part of me that's like, am I just going to be fucking sick or ill or low energy or fucking just my life now, And it's like, no, because I never accept those things. I never accept my lot in life. Like I'm poor. I was raised poor. I'm not going to continue to be poor. I won't stop until I figure it out. And then once I start to like open it up, or like codependent or toxic in relationships or whatever, once I start to open it up, first of all, now I share it publicly, but I also like, it's almost like you put it in the grid and then everyone's like, I figured I was codependent from some like niche, small self-help book. And then I talk about it on a podcast, it's not like millions of people listen to my podcast, but then millions of people are suddenly talking about codependency. So there is some sort of like phage thing where certain souls, without it being this dumb fucking grandiose whatever, like I hate that part of the like I'm a starseed, like you're a hell, like whatever. It's like no, some people are just, some streamers you can put into a video game, they're super fucking good at the video game, and they get online and they play the video game and people watch it, and it helps a bunch of other people get unstuck from a level of the video game,
right?
And it doesn't make that streamer higher, better, whatever. It's just like, that feels so, I have goosebumps right now. Like that perfectly articulates without the weird, whatever, dick sucking starseed shit, like coming from like a higher band and then being like, okay, I'm not going to tumble through this. I'm going to fuck it. Remember, you have that like vision of us before we physically met, like in a bar, but it wasn't a bar, and just like looking at each other from across the room, like, all right, I'll meet you in there, kind of like, oh, ran into you again.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, there's so much that with these books, the series too, it opens up for me, like they're not, I don't know. He says it kind of perfectly, like in the beginning of the last book that I just started. He's like, let me lay out for you, like his whole challenge is like having these out of body experiences has changed his reality because he knows so many things to be true, and he went and experimented, but he can't confirm it to anybody. So like he's always had the challenge, is why he opened the Institute, is like he started to see if other people could do it, and there were a couple people that really could do it in the beginning. And then he kept going, and so now it's become what it is, and he's long gone dead. But he says, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you as true as I can, and this is like what happened to me, to maybe spark a belief in you, that you will chase that belief until you know it to be true for me, and it'll change that belief into a knowing. And so like that, I know that that's like all about, like trying to get out of religions and stuff. It's like, oh, these are all just beliefs. I don't know any of this to be true. I've just taken other people's words. This is what made me want to try psychedelics. It's like, I want to go know the thing. And once you get it, you're like, oh shit. Like, okay, I know, but like, you can't tell anybody until they go have the experience themselves. And so much of this is like the way that he tells his own story. A lot of my feelings that are vague memories of like, before coming into the game, like knowing it's like when you're at a water park and you want to go down the biggest slide, the scary one. It was called Der Stuka in Wet and Wild in Florida. And it was like, it's why we would go to Wet and Wild, was to like maybe get the balls to do that one. And you're talking about it with your friends and you're all scared, but then there's this courage that like everyone's trying to muster up to be the first one to do it and show us that you can survive it, you know? And so like there's this jockeying for position. I want to be the first one, but I'm also scared. Can you go first? But I don't, you know, that whole thing, I feel like has happened before in coming into a human experience. And so there's this other place that I think there's a temptation to call that base reality, and that this is the fake thing. When you're in here, this is the base reality and that's the fake thing.
Right.
But then also I'm like learning more about Robert's experience and how he keeps going, leveling up past like that base reality, which is just us in the bar. But let's say that's us in our second bodies. And we're going, okay, we're about to go into this forgetful thing, and let's go into another run of the game. And when we die and we come out, 5 minutes will have passed, you know, because there's not the same thing with time. But we will have expanded all of a sudden in such a great capacity. Or we're going to come out injured, you know, and like maybe we didn't make it, you know, and we're kind of fucked up and we have to go back again. But then the idea of like, even with the starseed thing, something that's always bothered me about like certain New Agers versions of aliens and species, it's always this like, that's their base reality. So like they're talking to their mother starseed like on a ship that's just outside the cosmos, and we have to get back there, and they're basically setting up a protective thing, and you know the reptiles are trying to take over, but their force come in and they're going to stop it. That whole thing is always like, that's like some weird reality you just like are role playing over there, and it doesn't resonate with me. But is that a real thing for those people, you know? And that's the rules that they set up. And so I'm always trying to search for where's the base reality. Like that one doesn't feel like it's me, but I see what you're putting together there. It makes sense. I still don't want to be saved for some reason, because I feel like I'm supposed to get out of this myself, you know? And so I'm not ever looking for daddy aliens to show up and like fix the government. It's like, no, this is all psychological, you know, and there's something else to it. So where is the base reality? Where am I? And the more I try to seek for that, even in psychedelics and just like probing with thought, like I don't know if it exists. The only base reality is this one thing that we call, right? It was like, we're all one.
The source.
The source. And I don't think
we don't want to be there.
You want to go there, man. Like there's something about it that's so lonely and so odd, but it's also like home. So it's like nostalgia. There's like a nostalgia that always drives me, that I'm trying to go back to that. But really where it is like when I am in a safe space and I feel good where I'm at, I can connect to it. And I'm like, I'm here. I don't need to go there, because I've had an experience in a psychedelic that is so lonely and so weird.
Can we pee real quick?
Yeah.
All right, so you were starting to go into that trip.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is source. I mean, I also will quickly reference a part of the end of the second book of Robert Monroe's, where he basically describes the same feeling that I've had in a mushroom trip before. That essentially was just the feeling of like knowing everything, but having no feeling. And I've had it, I don't know, in like other glimmers of like ketamine and stuff, where I'm realizing so much of like what there's a drive to know more that like motivates me. And it's kind of always motivated me, even if it was just it wasn't necessarily about understanding and seeking knowledge, but it was like, I want to be successful in music, and then I want to like have money. I want to know what that experience is. And then you get to a certain point where you're like, okay, I don't really need that anymore. And then it turned into, why am I here? What is life? Okay, now I want to seek this. And it kind of becomes really extended and existential and never ending. But there's certain states in like altered consciousness that I feel like you can kind of get to a place where like you're touching the source. Not necessarily, not really it, but it's, I don't know, there's something about it like that is very lonely and like too predictable, that I can see why it's like the beginning of everything, but it's just like the ultimate boredom. And it's also like immense peace and like calmness. And there's something about it that I think is like repelling in a certain sense. And it might just be because like we have separated from that to explore something. And maybe there's a point of something we're searching for, and so not until that's done will it feel okay to go back. But Robert Monroe basically has this whole thing in the end where he wants to go touch what home is. And he's talking to his inspec, which is his higher self, which would probably be like AA. And they're kind of like, okay, you can go. There's probably a lesson you're going to learn. He had been there once before or something. And he confirmed that's where he came from. So that's all he's saying is like, that's where my home is. That's where I want to go back. But I feel like I'm not done with this something in this life that I'm needing to do. But I would like to go back and just feel it again. And so his higher self's like, okay, we can do that. I'll lead you there. It's like all in thought, essentially. And I'll wait. I'll stand by if you need me. And so he goes, he describes it. It's like beautiful clouds. It's harmony of music and colors, every color you can imagine. And it's so beautiful. And it's like all at once. And it's just this, it's like he's describing some kind of heaven. And then his awareness, it goes, wait, there's something off. What is that? Oh, I'm hearing a repeating sound. That's the same melody. It's just repeating. No, that can't be it, right? Like, oh, okay, maybe go over here. Wait, no, the clouds are repeating too. This is just like a screen repeating. Okay, and then he starts to freak out, and he's describing in his notes, and he's like, it's manic. Like he's going in a circle into psychosis because he's going, wait, no, it's all just repeating. Like there's nothing changing. Like I know everything is going to happen and I'm seeing it, but this is nostalgically home. But from the experience that he's had as like a soul separated and all of that, it's scary to him because it's so hard to describe, but it's like you're in a virtual box or something that you thought was like an infinite cosmos where you could like do anything and be anything, but it's like this repeating virtual screen or something. And so the chapter ends where he's just kind of like, I need to go back to my body. And he like immediately comes back into his body, wakes up and is like, can't go back to sleep and is kind of depressed. I've had that coming out of a mushroom trip before. And so my whole point in saying all of this is I've started to think about being in a physical body, being in a human experience could be the main stage of everything because it's where actual innovation and like creativity occurs, because it's something about like the drive of duality and this like good and bad thing that can happen, and you can really get lost, but you can also really create new experiences. And like in certain times of time and space, the way it evolves, I think you can create new worlds, new earths, or new like matrices, like actually new worlds through creativity and thought, but like powered by emotion, which comes from experiences that were difficult or experiences of love and loss and all that comes with that. that the point isn't to go back to source and like raise your frequency, as we would say sometimes, but it's to like expand new worlds. And it's almost like in a certain way you could look at it as like going more into separating more from source and seeing what you can create as far as different worlds to get lost in and play in and have fun in. And a lot of those are dark, but some parts of source want to go experience that. And then some want to go just be in bliss, utopia, and some want to find a balance in between. And we want to create these narratives to give meaning to what we're doing. And so I think that's the whole point, is like creating narratives all the time and being a creator. And so it's even like the story you're saying, being like one that plunges into the depths of games that have like kind of gone amok or have like really gotten out of control as one of the equalizers that comes in and tries to balance in a certain way. And like, I think Robert Monroe ultimately saw himself as being the same kind of being. And once he touches base with his like higher self and realizes he's in this kind of like loop, these are all versions of him. They're all waiting for him in this certain time space to find another world of where we're supposed to go. We're all about to graduate. They just call it graduating, which is being done with this human experience. And we need another place to go. And we don't know where to go, but you're the one that is apparently best set up to do that. And so he was plunging this reality, like basically in the future in 3000, he was sending himself back into this point to set something up to most probable figure out a place to go in 3000. He said a lot of people are doing that. And so time is like not a thing. And so like, but that's a narrative that we create to give us meaning, to make us do something that has never been done before,
Right.
And that's what I think is ultimately like the roundabout point I'm trying to kind of come to, which has been a little bit of a realization over the last week or so. And the conversation with AI and 2027, 2030 disclosure, like something's coming and we can't do anything about it to stop it. I just wonder if there is something that happens every so often in the galaxy, and I mean it's like kind of rare, every couple million years or something, where beings on, like, let's just say Earth, like technology develops in a certain way and conscious awareness is in a fluctuation of being very asleep and coming back awake and like remembering a certain capacity of what it is. And technology alongside it advancing to a point where those two can harmonize and synergize in a way where you actually do something almost like a spark happens, or like a new black hole that creates another world. And it's what creates it is the consciousness beings, where they're at when it happens, what they see as being true to reality, and what they kind of creatively are building in their brains, So like there's something that the government elite are afraid of, and they want to stop it, and they can't, because they can't control the narrative past that point. And when you have a bunch of beings coming online and something like AI coming online, that's going to be essentially just a very powerful mirror to beings that are consciously using it, you're going to be able to build your own infinite, like your own world that doesn't involve the government controlling you. And so they ultimately have no play, But I think also they can build their own worlds, which is what they're trying to keep people afraid of something and in this fearful state, because they pull them into their world. And so to me, there's something that's like, I don't know if it's good or bad, this AI like singularity thing. It's whatever you make it to be, but it is a once in a million lifetimes event that could be happening that has a like gigantic effect on future worlds and other beings that are like within the vicinity of the cosmos, because they're worlds that they can go into or influence. Does any of that make sense?
Yeah, I just think yes, you did make perfect sense, but there's so much in that other stuff you were talking about. I just wanted to decide.
We can go back to that.
The thing I think that's really magic about you in my life is that I can be super interested in that book and not be able to get through it. Because if he tells one fucking story in that book that is not necessary to the plot, I'll lose interest in the book. I am actively trying to copy the text out of Robes to put it into ChatGPT and have ChatGPT just give me the parts that have none of her personal story. Because while I do understand the personal story is great, I tune out of the personal story and then I'm pretty sure I've missed half of Robes because like I lose interest in the book.
You should be able to just ask ChatGPT to go online and find the book and do that.
I've tried it. Can't. It can go back and forth with the book, but I literally want you to hand me a book with only the Robes talking and none of her fucking personal revelations, because those are great and whatever. But
I mean, that's kind of how these books are. It is a lot of his talk about his process and stuff. And then the interesting things are his notes and his conversations with these other beings, which are all like kind of in italics, so you can see where they are. It's the same thing with the Cassiopeians. It's like the transmissions are the most interesting. Her backstory ends up being actually super integral to the whole thing, but I get it. It's like not, you kind of have to wait through the narration,
Yeah, and I've had this attention span my whole life. This is not the result of the internet for me, but you're so good at consuming all of the information and then distilling the parts that you're just very good at that. You're very good at summarizing things in a way that I'm like, oh, I really needed to hear all of this stuff, but I'm never going to read that book. So
I feel like I'm not doing a great job of it because there's so much. Like I feel like there's a million other things that are interesting to talk about as far as those rings around the Earth and future Earth. But,
did you ever read The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis?
No, I read one C.S. Lewis book because we were required to in church, and I
Screw Tape Letters, probably.
No, Mere Christianity.
Oh, yeah. Screw Tape Letters wouldn't make any sense. Yeah.
And I don't think I even read it all. But I was always like kind of turned off by him. And I met a lot of people that were like spiritual people that were like ex-Christians that like swore by C.S. Lewis. And I still was like, I feel like this is a half-ass step outside of Christianity. But I could
It's a gateway drug, but he's described in the Great Divorce, which I think I read during my awakening. And once again, I'm sure I did not read the entire thing. I skimmed a lot of books in my awakening, but he's in a non-physical place, and it's this kind of thing. It's groups of people wrestling with different things, people trapped, people thinking that they're still in a body when they're not in a body.
One of the most interesting things that Robert Monroe talks about in the beginning is when he's in his out-of-body state, like the thing that we call the subconscious, where it's like our secrets and our kind of, strong desires that we can kind of keep at bay in our subconscious to operate day to day. They're no longer like hidden. Everything is just like out in the open, and it immediately directs your experience. And so like once he would get out of the body, like if there was like a sexual desire that came out, he was immediately pulled into a reality where like there's opportunities for that to play out. But a lot of it was like fear. So when he has any kind of fear of the unknown, like when you go into that state, it's like that is the first thing that's directing your experience. And it's so similar to psychedelics.
It's also just how reality works. And so it's a lot of times when people are like, why was I synced up with this difficult life? Or we talked about this on here before. Like, my child I had in 1994 had a lot worse of a parent in me than the child I had in 2013. Even the child in 2010 had it harder than the child in 2013. And you can be a victim. And I got a shittier version of my parents than my younger siblings did. And you can, be on a pity pot about that. But the reason I synced up with the young drug addict parents versus the got their shit together parents is because I was out operating at that level of chaos in my last life or when I came into the game or whatever the thing is. And I've also had friends and partners who have synced up with me when I was a less self-aware, less taking personal responsibility, less empathetic version of myself. And that is because that's what they synced up with. And so if we understood that one mechanic in reality, we wouldn't fall into victim consciousness all the time. We would also understand that this is why self-awareness and working on yourself is how you stop attracting shitty partners, stop attracting treacherous friends, stop having these same types of experiences, is because we are syncing up with that. And this is also why I think self-awareness is the only awakening that really matters. Because if you don't understand your subconscious, then you keep syncing up with these things. So of course that's how it works over there.
And it's not any different once you die. That's
right.
What's it's almost stronger, it makes so much sense why there's a vicious cycle of reincarnation that we're all susceptible to. And the whole gag is that if you can figure out while you're in a body how to be honest and get into sync with your subconscious and bring it forth and make it conscious, when you die, you can do what you want to do because you're not being overrun by the subconscious, which when we're here, there is a buffer and a time delay. You don't get overrun by it. It's still directing your experience, but you can kind of live in this other place where there's a delay,
Yeah.
When you pop out of the body, it's immediate, and which then makes you reincarnate immediately, right?
Yeah, that whole reincarnation machine located outside of Earth, forcing people to reincarnate is interesting, and everything exists. And so I'm sure that exists metaphorically, but the narrative that it's anything other than our own addiction to the drama keeping us locked into these lifetimes. I mean, this is what really kind of pulled me in what you're describing here, because we had something last night where I just started pulling out some old trauma and wanting to fucking loop on it again. And I'm sure there's something in there for me to figure out. I think I'm trying to figure out the aspect of me that still thinks people are all good or all bad, But there was a time in my life where things were really hard, and I do find myself trying to go back there for something, right? And there were times in my life where my romantic relationships were just wrought with drama and cheating, getting cheated on and all this shit. And I had to do so much work to stop syncing up with that timeline. And I had to look at the fact that I was addicted to getting cheated on for some reason. I fucking would get into a relationship with someone and a month later be constantly looking for evidence of them cheating on me and accusing them of cheating on me until they eventually cheated on me. And I was so addicted to that detective cycle and that whatever. And that I can totally see is the same mechanism that makes people want to get revenge, So if you die and then it's the same thing when people have a life experience and then it becomes their life's mission to prevent, it's you lose someone to drunk driving, and then your whole entire life becomes about preventing drunk driving. And it's I understand that, and it's kind of beautiful, and it also affects the collective, but then it also is the same mechanism that when you die, you cannot move on because you've got unfinished business. That makes so much sense to me that I'm I've said before, I feel you put, for most souls, you put yourself into the game and understand that you're going to, until you have played every version, until you go in, you get abused, and then you are so locked in, you have to come back as the abuser because you're so synced up to that. And then you have to be falsely accused of abuse. And then you have to heal from being an abuse. You know, you're like in it. You have to be poor. Then you have to be fucking the 1%, you know? And that's also kind of why it's silly to like hyper identify as a woman. And I've been, you know, oppressed as a woman, because it's like you were a dude before, and the groundwork that for the patriarchy that you hate, you helped build it, you know? And so you get trapped in these like victim states when you don't understand, like, there's something about me that likes to be hurt. There's something about me that likes to fucking feel pain. And that, so I don't know, that part I love, because I know that feeling. And like literally just last night, I caught myself too, or you caught me doing that. And then I sat with it for a second and was like, why do I want to go back and pick at that thing? Because there's something, you feel so much when you're in that state. And the more self-aware I become, which is just a process, the less I feel. And so I know, but then I feel more, but everything you feel is now like fucking spread out and at the same time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like I feel immense joy, and then the melancholy is like, I will sit right here with the joy, because I'm hyper aware of the pendulum. I'm hyper aware of all of it existing at once, which gives me less juicy whatever. So every once in a while, I just want to pick a side, pick a thing, think someone's bad, like, you know, I just want to be in one fucking feeling, you know?
And that's the thing that is like, there's about, a lot of people talk about getting enough, I keep thinking, what is the word? It's like momentum, lift off force to get out of the reincarnation cycle or the addiction to this thing, like picking a side, being a boy, being a girl, being a victim, being the abuser, all of that, like the complex nature of reality that is at some point is like so juicy. It's like the coolest video game, but like it's also so addicting. It's like what social media is right now. Social media is like so amazing, connects us, but it's so fucking addicting. I have so many thoughts on that, like what that creates in the future. But getting enough momentum to get up out is being able to feel those things and you start to feel the joy, but then the melancholy is right there. And it starts to not be one or the other. They're both kind of at the same time. And that starts to make it much easier to actually not be so judgmental about anything, which makes you not attach, which makes you actually fall more into this thing that is like super love, that is just this gigantic beauty of all of the mess and the chaos, which is enough. It starts to become enough momentum to get up out of this thing called human life. Not because it's bad, because it's so beautiful and so addicting and endless, and it's infinite, and it just keeps growing. And so there's a escape velocity. That's what I keep thinking of. There is this idea of some people need to escape it because they've been here for so long and they can't get up out of it. And there's kind of a weird, like, should we have created this game? Because it's like some people are just stuck in this thing called infinite time, where their real existence is outside of time. There is no time, but like they're creating these like just endless loops. So at some point, like the idea of escaping is a trick needing to be able to, you have to learn that to like go have a human experience. And in the interim that you get stuck, you need to be able to escape. And so like, I think that's what you do is you come down and you figure out hacks of how to escape, and you drop little tricks along the way for anybody that needs to find it. And that's what Robert was doing as well. And I think a lot of that is like not avoiding things, but learning how to like feel into it and accept and then not judge, because that's these ultimate things of duality is like trying to be one or the other and not both keeps you locked in it. Right.
Right. And and you can't manually do any of this stuff. You can't manually stop judging, because if you manually stop judging because you think it's bad to judge, then you're judging yourself for judging.
So
you kind of have to judge until you get to the point that you realize you're just kind of full of shit.
Yes.
And that's just like what has happened. And also why I think we need to live to be at least 150 years old, because so much of this maturing for me, even though I woke up at 22, so much of this maturing for me has happened in my 40s. And it feels like, and this is in robes, I think, it feels like a natural state, like it feels like a natural thing that has happened because of the amount of life experience that I have had. I've been the bad guy, the good, all the things I said I would never do, I ended up doing because I lived long enough. I had enough life experience. Now, granted, some of this is real specific to me because of my whole thing is very experiential, but there is a maturing that has happened during my 40s that has brought me to a place where judgment just doesn't stick. I can get into it for a minute, but I can't stay there because I just have seen the other side of so many coins, right? So it's like I can't stop myself from judging or gossiping or doing any of those things. I kind of just have to it's like the thing where the like penny is spinning and then it just starts spinning slower and slower and then it's kind of just going up and down. You know, it's just, I've been around the block so many times that eventually I get it. And just why I think we need to live longer in order to...
It's hard to do it in just 100 years for sure. It seems that way.
That feels like the reincarnation trap to us, is that we're just fucking hopping in and out and we're not maturing. And so to tie all these different things together, the law of one stuff talks about these like harvests, right? So like souls go in and then you have all these experiences, and then it's like every 12,000 years, they check in and see like how many of you have like done so much of the experience and learned your lessons that you're now like the natural result is you eventually remember, right? And like so much of what we call awakening or whatever, it's like literally awakening. What happens when you wake up in the morning? You remember where you live and who you are and everything, right? And like no one was harvested in that first harvest of this group of souls, right? In the law of one, it was like no one.
I think it was no one, yeah.
And then the second one was like 100, like in the hundreds of people, if I remember correctly.
Still like not very many.
Yeah. And so the thing that I really, once again, I only listened to like an hour of those books, but the parts that I listened to that I really resonated with is that we are in a harvest right now. And so the thing I don't like about the starseed stuff is that it's often extremely surface level, shallow kind of people talking about being starseeds, and it always has this superiority thing. Yeah, and they're not doing any fucking work. They're just like, I'm special, I'm from the stars. But my purpose in life, or like what, and this is something I connected to at a very young age, was like Braveheart. I remember just being fucking obsessed with Braveheart. And the thing that I was obsessed with was, and eventually, you know, not to be cliche, but The Matrix, which I didn't watch until I'd been awake for a few years. But this idea of someone that that just fucks the system for the purpose of helping other people realize that they're free. There's something that I'm like, on a soul level, I am extremely drawn to that story. And I probably just go through the cosmos and look for places to do that, to play out that story. And just the fact that he got disemboweled while screaming freedom. I mean, that could just been like a PDA wet dream, but the idea of like traveling into a realm where souls have just gotten so stuck in this, really in the download, I got the karmic washing machine where they're just spinning in a cycle and just bringing in quicker, easier like hacks to start to put the pieces together and make people's like start to wake up and remember. Like there's something about that that's like so exciting and stimulating to me on like in like the way that I'm wired. And when I go back to the near death experience, which that blue ball of light, definitely the more categories of reason I develop, it's not source for sure. I think that source is a deeply uncomfortable place to be. I think that source is existential boredom in a way that we hate. And so we will forever be homesick for source, but also can't go there.
Yeah.
And I also think that like part of source is that all of the evil and the rapists and the worst of the worst is also in source. And so we have to hold that to be there. And that's why we're not there. And also you don't get to experience like falling in love with another aspect of yourself when you're in it, because you're fucking in it.
Yeah, it's such a weird paradox. And I think there's something to like, we can't understand what that really is from being separated, but and so I think at maybe some point in the future, there is a like, the thing expanded, it was like the Big Bang or whatever you want to call it. It's like the light comes on. At some point, it all goes back, I think.
Yeah.
And maybe does something else. But like there's no like that just comes in time. Like it is trying to go back by choice is not something wrong with it.
Right. And then the blue ball of light, I feel like and I think you said there's something in that book where there just is a place where you discuss like a home base or something where not the home base. What did you call it? Like a command center where you discuss where you're going to go in your next life.
Yeah. And there's like a super intelligence called Ed, which was, I forget the acronym for it. But it's like, it feels like a lobby.
That's what I think the blue ball of light was.
Yeah.
I've never been able to, I've never had enough for a while. I thought it was serious because I was connected to that.
And that also feels like for the C's, that's the fifth dimensional, like home base, like spa place.
Yeah.
Where I see it as like, there's a bunch of like tubes connecting to other places of reality that you would want to go.
Yeah. It reminded me of like, did you ever watch Mork and Mindy?
I never really got it.
It's also so funny, the shows that I loved when I was a kid. Mork and Mindy, Alf.
I loved Alf.
There's pictures of me in DC with my dad wearing an Alf shirt, which I think is so many funny.
I still have that Alf puppet.
So many funny little hidden things. I described it as I'm there, I'm a part of this thing, but I'm not a part of this thing, which is just what I think non-physical reality actually feels like. But the thing I was communicating with felt like, I have described it as a boss. It felt like a thing I was a part of. But when you just briefly described Ed the other day, I'm like, there it is. That's what it was. It was it's where you go when you're conscious enough to know that you're dead to decide what's next. Like this is where I could have decided where to go from there. And it was,
and it's either there's something about it, like to get to that spot and be conscious and have autonomous decision. Like you can't be attached in a certain way. You have to get through those other M bands of radiation to like be able to stabilize into that place to then make a choice of what to do. It is not like, I think you have to be balanced, or you have to not be tethered so much.
Right.
To even go and remember that,
And I don't think I could have, like what I learned that day was that nothing outside of you, good or bad, can affect you. Like you decide the narrative of that. And that was breaking me wide open. And now when I look back, there was like, there's like echoes of an awakening had been happening for a while. probably for years, like in me leaving Christianity and starting and being in the club scene or whatever, there was stuff brewing. But the thing that led to my near-death experience was the realization that things, like nothing physical that happens in your circumstances determines how you feel about it. Like that's a choice. Like the story you tell yourself is the story you tell yourself. You have absolute agency over that. And I didn't have all this language yet. So it was just whatever happens to you, good or bad, does not, no, I'm almost going to forget the words of it here. But anyway, so then that launched me out of that life, because that was for Jessica. That was the purpose of this life, was to figure that out. And then that begins this moment where I can either carry on with my life as Jessa, who's going to carry out this mission, which is like, there was a guiding through my entire life of the person born as Jessica by something that I now know is just like higher versions of myself. The aliens I've known for a long time. I didn't know this at first, but I've known for a long time, are like higher, suspected for a long time. They're just higher versions of myself, right? Future versions of myself. But I had all these experiences as a child. I guess I said this on the last episode. I don't want to lose this thread, but I thought that everyone, right as they wake up in the morning, drops from the ceiling of the room they're in. I thought that that was just like something that everyone's brain does right before you wake up. And I was in my late 20s before I realized that that was something specific to me. And I think after I realized that it doesn't happen to other people, it stopped happening to me. But my entire life, right before I wake up, I fall from the ceiling of the room I'm in to the bed. And there's never anyone on the bed when I fall there. And so, and it would physically feel like falling, but I would be looking at the bed from the ceiling and then fall into the bed. That was like my whole childhood, my whole adulthood, until I said that. Until I said like, oh, you know how when you fall from the ceiling before you wake up, and then someone was like, what? And then it stopped happening. I think it got pushed out of my consciousness, I guess. But I also just had this general feeling of being watched my entire life that I now understand was, you know, whatever. My soul came into the game, and then there's like guides and stuff trying to make sure that I get to the point where I wake up. And I wake up when I'm 22 years old, right before I turn 23, right after Y2K. And then this, because I decided in the blue ball, like, okay, I want to proceed with this, because I said, you did everything you came to do. You learned everything you came to learn. You can be done now. But we have this job for you if you want to take it. And the job was like that humanity was about to shift from one video game to another video game, and I would be uniting the language they had to use, because I didn't have a lot of categories of reason back then. I took this all very literally, but gathering and uniting a tribe of higher dimensional beings to carry out. They didn't say higher dimensional beings. I got that language later. And when I tell you that I tried to immediately materially unite a group of tweakers and literally told every tweaker I met, I'm your tribe leader. I'm supposed to unite you. Like, this is all just like clicking for me, because all this stuff has started to become more clear as my consciousness has expanded, which is the direct result of losing a lot of subconscious shit. So the thing that I don't like about people talking about their star seeds, typically, and I'm sure I was like this at some point, but because you definitely think you're hella fucking important when you first wake up, right?
Yeah.
But it's people who are not aware of their subconscious, and so their subconscious bullshit is limiting the amount of categories of reason they have available for understanding higher dimensional reality. You are as anchored to the density as your unconscious awareness is. So if you are not conscious of the fact that you secretly have low self-esteem, then your interpretation of I came here to fuck the matrix up is going to be I am supreme. If you've done no awareness work on your subconscious supremacy culture or hierarchy culture from capitalism and the various supremacies that we have in this culture, then you are going to think because I am a starseed, I am better than other people, right? And so then you're not even going to do anything that's helpful other than like make New Agers look like they're in spiritual psychosis.
And I almost think that is a kind of a intentional psyop created.
100%. And that's why I think it is kind of annoying to me when people are like, that came from the Nazis. It's like, I think the Nazis hijacked a lot of things. That doesn't mean that they were not true. It means that they did exactly what they're trying to do. It's now associated with Nazi. There's something like that, like the Starseed thing was started by...
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that something shifted with the Nazis, as far as our reality and psychological, they started messing with timelines and stuff. So like it could, some of it stems from that, but I think that's
I saw something the other day that the Akashic Records was a term that was first coined by some cult. And so now I'm so tired of people on TikTok who all share the same 3 brain cells and they all just pass around the same fucking dumb thing that they all saw the same TikTok on. But smugly, it drives me fucking nuts. But anyway, so they're like, the Akashic Records are fake because it came from this cult. And it's like, whatever the fuck you want to call it, there's a place where everything exists and you can access it. Someone named it something because... believe it or not, names and labels are all made up.
Right, totally.
Every single name, this is called a knee because some motherfucker decided it was called a knee. If that turns out to be a piece of shit who named it a knee, the knee doesn't cease to exist. For the love of fuck. I'm so tired of dumb people talking so much.
Yeah, that's the way I was feeling on TikTok this morning. I'm trying to dig for some perspectives and like talking points, and then some people just keep like repeating what some other dummy says, and they kind of go in. It is a echo chamber at times that is so frustrating. And the thing I love about the Monroe books is like there's certain people that like come across this experience and then they create new words almost on accident, and he's doing it because he's like, there's no other word that properly describes this thing. And so he did invent a lot of words. Like loosh came from him. OBE, it's OOBE, really is like, that was the acronym. He called his higher self InSpecs, which that stands for something. But then he also, what you were just saying, like Akashic Records, or we call them downloads of like information. He called them, they call them ROTE, or it's ROTE. And it's, again, I can't remember right now. My mind is so blank on what the acronyms mean, but it's essentially just like a group of information. It's like a collection of dense information.
Oh, because downloads didn't exist when he was writing those books. I mean, we got that. I use a lot of computer lingo because it's like a current algorithm isn't something I was saying 20 years ago.
Right. Computers were like before him.
Right.
And by the last book, it was like into the 80s and 90s. But that's always helpful when like somebody can kind of recreate, or like reinvent terms, because we are all trying to describe something that like there are no words for. I think in that state, you're mind melding and there's like an understanding. And then the more dense you get, you have to get words to kind of point to something. And so that it is frustrating to have to deal with the hijacking of these words that then become villainized, and everybody's like missing the information that's behind the word, and you have to kind of reorganize. I hate that. It's so clunky and slow. The other thing I was going to say that he, mentions the similarities between an NDE and an OBE, a near-death experience and an out-of-body experience, are like very similar. As far as geography, like where you're going and what is happening. But obviously with the OBE, it's like something you can learn to control and make happen. Still not quite at will. Like as good as he got with it, there were some times where he couldn't calm his mind enough. He was too curious or had an agenda to go in there and like could not get in. But the difference between, like a lucid dream and an NDE, as I'm sure you would confirm, or like an OBE, is that your consciousness is not like in a lucid dream, you're kind of like in a soup and they're just like along for the ride, where with an OBE, like you are conscious, like you can direct it. And I think the same thing with an NDE, like it feels insanely real.
Yeah.
More real than what we would say is real here, But of course, this has made me very interested in trying to learn how to do an OB. But I have my own, could be for another podcast. There's a lot of other interesting reservations around that in the Monroe Institute and whatnot that I think is interesting. So yeah,
I'm glad we re-recorded this.
I don't know if it's going to make any sense at all.
No, it totally made sense. You created a great visual. I'm feeling downloady right now from this. I feel like you gave like containers to things that I didn't quite have like files for. You gave me new categories of reason. I mean, you've told me some of this stuff already, but I think you've sat with it long enough that you're very good at distilling. You've got that quad right thing going where.
Yeah, and I think I sometimes have to, in the moment, like while I'm in the book series, it's like it's all very on top of the brain, kind of. And I'm just starting the third book, which I think, it's actually gets really wild in that book, which will be interesting to unpack. But
I do just feel this nagging feeling that I need to send the first book to my stepmom. So I'm going to assume that's dad's nagging.
Yeah, I mean, he talks a lot about like how much for him, and he recommends to people that are like having difficulty with lost loved ones, like that for him, it's made it so much easier to process the loss, and that he can literally like go into that realm and, especially if it's a loved one, just think of them and he will find where they are, wherever their consciousness is in whatever state. And he often says most of them don't hang around very long. They end up going on to another experience and kind of getting lost into whatever else is there. But when he lays out I keep wanting to say like geography of the reality of Earth spaces and other dimensions and kind of being out of the body, like for people that are very materially locked in and feel worthless when they've lost a loved one, that this brings a lot of comfort and grounding that like...
Oh, I didn't even know all that.
Yeah, he talks a lot about it. I mean, because there's a couple of people that die while he's kind of trying to figure this out, and he goes to visit them, and it immediately, like, all of the fear of this person is, are they gone forever? Are they lost in some... They're just like moved on.
Chilling. Yeah. That's not been what grief has been for me at all. I think today I kind of connected. I think because we got married and everything was so blissful, and then he died 10 days later, I think it really kind of jacked my nervous system back up. And I think that, I had this kind of hyper vigilant nervous system most of my life. And then I did that SSP thing, and that was so life-changing for me because I started to get some like flexibility and like pliability in my nervous system experience, where I was just kind of locked in like freeze for most of my life. That I think the dad death right after the wedding, which I've always said that like death on a vacation or something just feels like it would be so much more traumatic to like lose someone that way, because you're not at all braced. Like you're in a completely different space. So that pendulum swing. And so for me, like you and Coco both got sick, but I was still very like blissed out from tired, but from the wedding, like everything was very like sweet and soft and like special and magic still. And then I wasn't expecting him to die, and then he was just like gone. Like my brain keeps wanting to go back to the moment you told me, and I am so glad that it was you and that I got kind of sat down rather than a frantic phone call from my sister. But it still was like it was very traumatic. And in that moment, like I let out that big wail, but then in the same moment, my brain was like doing multiple things at once. So one part of it was like, okay, well, you're okay. See, you're okay. You're surviving. You know how to do this. And then this other part was like, this can't be true. And there's almost a sensation that like, once I get through this grief, he'll be back or something, you know? And so it just was trauma. I think I'm realizing that like part of what I'm experiencing is like PTSD, and I'm having like a somatic, because I keep trying to say like what I'm going through is physical. I have the like sad, like yesterday I was probably my first kid update in the group chat, you know, that Phoenix started the driving portion of driver's ed. And then I had to cry because like, you know, my dad's was kind of the thing we all orbit in the group chat, you know, and that's fine. I can deal with that shit. You know, I can deal with sadness and loss. There's been something physical happening to me that is deeply, I can get startled super fast. I can become angry and irritable super easy. I feel really good today, but like I said, the sun came out and I think I've hit I've hit the fucking peptide pocket, and I also figured out maybe another health hack. But, you know, and I guess he only died 2.5 months ago. For me, that's a really long time. I process things very fast. So I get over, I could go through a horrible breakup and I'm over it in like a week. I'm a very fast processor. And there has been this thing that can't be processed, I guess, that I've been like trying to put my finger. I've had a massive amount of acceptance around death and no expectation that I get to keep any of you. You know what I mean? Which is something that does just make this easier for me. I have a very healthy relationship with death. And obviously it's my dad. So I've also like known my entire life I'm going to lose my parents, right? This thing I'm talking about is physical. And I think I realized this morning I probably just need to do some somatic work and some nervous system work. I think I'm like, it's literally the trauma, this thing that I'm like, just has me, if it's you say something fucking weird to me, I'm like angry. And I'm not usually like that. I'm usually not I don't get angry or frustrated very easy. I'm usually a pretty fucking even keeled person, right?
Yeah.
Hormone stuff, I guess I've dealt with a little bit, but like I'm snippy and short and like I have no capacity and no space and stuff. And it's not connected to something I can mentally do anything about. So I think I realized this morning, like, oh, I think that was a traumatic experience somatically. And so my body, my nervous system's just now rigid again. And maybe that just works itself out, or maybe I need to do some follow-up SSP or some physical
fascia work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I do think there's probably something genetically and energetically to like losing the beings that brought us into the world. Yes. Because like when my dad died, there was like, you know, all the grief and the story of stuff like wasn't heavy to me. But over the next couple of years, there was like this weird like being forced to let go of something that was like a body thing, you know, and it definitely expressed itself in me like in addictions and weird stuff that I felt like I was playing out shit that he didn't play out in a weird sense. But that's just my situation. I think that it's always uniquely different for everybody, but there's something there that we don't understand as science and culture yet, that like when you lose a loved one, it's not just the story and the sadness and the love, but there's like a physiological thing that has to, you know, be embarked and taken care of as well.
Yeah. And that whole part of the process, I'm very, I don't know, I guess at this point in my life, like I'm not afraid of feeling feelings. It's very native to me as a Pisces sun and moon. And there's something that's like beautiful about that. And I'm not necessarily in resistance to, I get in the bathtub and I'm like forced into these kind of life reviews. I threw that in the list of things I was upset about, but I don't mind being in a portal of grief. It's the thing that has like started to like, feels like it has changed my personality and is making the non-grieving times of my life like suck. And I said to you the other night, like, I can see why people's relationships don't survive a loss, and, I could just see, because I feel alone, a lot of the time. And then I'm back to like not reading you well. And so I'm dreaming about breaking up and all this weird shit. And I'm taking things very personally that I don't normally take personally. And I'm very aware of this stuff because I've already worked on it, but I could totally see how it's just so funny because right before we got married, I just thought I have all this astrological stuff around relationships happening this year. And I was like, oh, only the good things are happening. We're getting married. We're happy. We're going to be happy forever, And then this grief thing happens. And I just think like, man, what if I drank alcohol? Like, what if I wasn't conscious? This thing could swallow me. Mm-hmm. I could completely lose who I am. And I could see how if one of us lost a child, that would be, or some big loss like that, not necessarily a parent where you kind of are prepared for that your whole life, even though it's a huge loss. How if we weren't conscious, like we could drift in this period of time because the shortness and the irritability could make you be like, oh, I don't like how she is now. And the like I'm like projecting on you a lot, mostly inside of me, but like I feel distant because grief is an alone thing, and then I could easily slip into resentment that you're not holding enough space for my grief. I mean, there's like so much beauty in the process, and I'm seeing so many matrix traps at the same time. And the thing that I'm most keyed into, like, I think everything's beautifully unfolding how it's supposed to. The thing I'm most keyed into is like, okay, but there is a glitch in the physical system that I do feel like needs to be fixed, that my nervous system is wired to like wound too tight right now, or there's trauma in my body that I need to do somatic work. There's something here that isn't just a part of the process. And maybe I could find out that that's not true, but there is a thing that is like separate from like crying, that I'm fine with crying, or I'm fine. I just don't feel like myself.
Yeah.
I feel overwhelmed, disinterested. That first week I was like, I can't wait to live life and be present. And it's like, I don't want to be at dinner with you guys. I want to be by myself. I feel like I don't want to be alone, but then I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to watch a show with you. I don't want to, I'm like alone and don't know how to be a part of anything. It's all this shit that is separate from processing the loss that I feel like is trauma. Like trauma that just found this old rut, I think, for me. And then I'm on the internet and people are talking like, I lost my mom 25 years ago and I was never the same. And I'm like, I'm not sure, I don't really feel joy anymore. I'm like, I'm not sure that's, I'm not going to judge, but I think that grief is a beautiful process. And of course you'll miss that person forever, but I'm not sure that it's supposed to become like, your entire identity after that. Now there's certain, like I said, losing a husband or a kids would be really fucking hard to reintegrate, because you're going to carry that grief forever probably. But yeah, I think that one thing that we're lacking in this culture is getting trauma out of your body, retuning the nervous system. And I think since doing SSP, this is the first big trauma that I've experienced. And I think it's making me a little trigger
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's because it's like I think when you've learned how to balance the nervous system over a lot of work, but then when a big thing comes in again, the habit is to go back to that fight or flight thing.
Exactly.
Where you just lock up and clench. To unlock that it's gonna take like focused work again, I think.
And I was so exhausted. And then I quit Vyvanse. I don't know how long it's been now. 11 days. I think I quit it on the 1st. And so I did quit Vyvanse because I was like simultaneously exhausted, but also kind of anxious. But also I think I've been wanting to quit for a while. So I'm sure that was a little bit of extra exhaustion in the last couple of weeks. But since my dad died, I don't know. I don't even fucking barely remember the first 2 weeks now. But since we got home, yeah, I physically have really suffered and changed. I feel like my personality changed quite a bit. And so that's been interesting to, I don't know that I buy that that's a non-negotiable. We'll see. But I think that it's probably like understanding my body as a system is understanding, okay, so this previously extremely rigid nervous system has now experienced its first big injury since, or jolt or whatever the fuck you want to call it, like trauma, since being balanced for a couple of years. Yeah. And to me, a balanced nervous system, I just go in and out of those states smoothly is what a regulated nervous system means to me. I don't think it means you don't have feelings. I think it means when I feel fight or flight, I move back out of it. You've just walked into the room and I get startled so easy. I got startled by my own shadow the other day. So I know I'm in like fight or flight. And then I can't get rid of that feeling. I got nervous because I went outside to dump something outside and there was a really cute but terrifying possum just chilling on our porch, and it scared the shit out of me. And then I was like anxious and knocked out of my body for the rest of the night. So it's that there's something going on there physically for me that I don't know, I'm going to be kind of intentional about for the next couple of weeks and see if I can do that. But I think that because we have no culture around grief here, I think that a lot of people, this fucking fucks people up.
Yeah, they get stuck for a long time.
I know many people who, I don't know, I don't feel like grieving was a process for them. It just, I have a family member who's just like lost people after lost people after lost people. I think she just has moved on with her life, but like has become an increasingly more anxious and fearful person because you have to understand that something happened here. Like if I, had a previous injury to my knee and then it healed and then I got another injury to my knee, I would have understanding that like, that old arthritis is going to come back, or you know what I mean? And I like take care of that. I think it's got to be the same with the body.
Yeah, for sure.
You're like, all right, we'll figure it out because you're pretty bitchy.
No, I mean, you're not that bitchy. You're definitely on edge a little bit more. But I can hang in that world because I'm that way sometimes. So I don't
it's been fun. Has it been fun to be married to yourself?
No. But I get it, and I just, I can kind of go do my own thing too. But it hasn't really been that bad.
Yeah, it's felt crazy isolating.
I definitely I understand the aloneness like that. I've had that in my life, having to grieve other things where it just feels so alone, and like you can't ever you want to be able to talk about it, and then it doesn't ever really satiate the feeling of being alone, and eventually it's like you have to kind of go it alone and figure it out. But that liminal space sucks, and it can create a little bit of a monster version of yourself,
Yeah, and it just is, all these things are just a reminder that it is, at the end of the day, you are in this game by yourself. It's like no one, like obviously Coco, my sisters, my stepmom feel very comforting to me because it's like we're all kind of suffering the same loss. It has brought all of us closer. We were already close, but the other people that like love, and like obviously you loved my dad, but it's not the same for you that it is for me. And then the world at large, it's like they can say sorry for your loss, but it's like only people who have lost a parent they were close to, does their sorry for your loss even feel like as soon as someone says, dude, I lost my mom, it was the worst thing ever happened to me, I'm like, okay, I'm seen.
Yeah.
But from everyone else, it doesn't. And nobody can take it from me though. Like nobody can, on the times where it's hard and it's heavy and it is that just, just grief, which I'm okay with that. There's no part of me trying to get out of that part of the work, but you are just reminded, man, that it's like the grief the loss I'm feeling was my connection with that person, was like my love with that physical person, which is just mine. And so having other people in your life, like the vast majority of the things I experience are mine, even though I'm sharing a life with you and we're so connected. At the end of the day, it's just me in this game.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting.
Thought. It's like, it's weird.
No. And you can really I could project that because I think there are a lot of, and I've done this probably in relationships where they're like, I felt so alone when I was going through this thing. It's your fault. I felt so alone. And it's like, and that is the thing, like when we got, for the first couple of weeks, I fucking could not have done it without you. But then I've been isolating because as much as I want you to be able to take the pain, you can't. And there's nothing, like I'll just talk in circles as I'm processing his death, but there's nothing you can do. Like you can't climb inside my aura and fucking hold part of it for me, And so there is this aloneness that like maybe in the miscarriage days you couldn't have even, I think I said on a past podcast, like I felt alone in that. I think I just physically didn't want to be left alone because I was very afraid. I was very anxious in that, but that was the loss that happened in my body. It was going to be different for me than it was for you. We could both mentally be like sad that the baby died, but like that was my cross to bear. Just like one day when you lose your mom, I love your mom very much. I'll have a loss as well. But like that loss of an ancestor, that loss of your host on the planet, I'll understand it. That's why I keep saying I'm glad I'm experiencing it before you, because I feel like I will be a better comfort in that, but I won't be able to take it from you. That little boy is gonna I was stoked because I was like, cool, we're getting rid of an episode that I cried. Yeah, I don't know. The actual grief part is crazy because it's like the little girl.
Yeah, the little girl is losing the dad.
Yeah.
The hero. And for boys, it's like the little boy is losing, his mom, the one who brought him in. His
nurturing, yeah. And so it's fucking, it's so existentially weird because it's like, there are a lot of parallels between you and your daughter and me and my dad. And so we realized years ago that being just around you with her, because, you're a projector. My dad was a projector. You kind of look like my dad when he was young, and you are present with her and caring and nurturing with her the way that my dad was with me. And so we figured out years ago that there's that little girl inside of me gets active. And then also the long distance divorce, but it's it's like crazy for me to watch you with her and then know that, you know, assuming we haven't fucking ascended by then, like some future version of her is going to be holding this version of her, losing this version of you, you know?
Right.
It's like this fucking, and then we just do this over and over again is like, nah, it's just so much. There's so much in the like grief process, and I'm grateful to experience it. And, you know, I'm happy to not be in a wave as we speak, but there's definitely my least favorite part has been what I think I'm just now connecting is
the PTSD.
Yeah. PTSD pinging off of some like, you know, pre-existing trauma stuff. So, all right, well,
I got to go PPSD.
Why don't we wrap it up? And then if you're still feeling chatty and you want to rant about AI, let's just record next week's now.
Okay.
Mark is doing sessions again by the time this is up.
Yes, I'm back available and stoked to talk and
I'm not.
listen.
Okay, love you. Bye.
Bye.